Now that's the kind of enthusiasm I like to hear. What's your name, dear?
Buffy Davis, and I love to sing.
In 1976, America woke up to the kind of news that made people stop and stare at the headline twice. Anissa Jones, the sweet little girl millions remembered as Buffy from Family Affair, was dead at just 18 years old. To viewers, she had been the picture of childhood innocence. Blonde hair, bright eyes, pigtails, and that famous doll always close by. But behind the smile America loved, Anissa's real life had been far more painful than the wholesome television world that made her famous. She was born Mary Anissa Jones on March 11, 1958, in Indiana. At first, there was nothing to suggest that her life would become a Hollywood tragedy. She was a pretty, lively child with a natural charm that adults noticed quickly. After the birth of her younger brother Paul, the Jones family moved to California, a place where ordinary children could sometimes be pulled into the strange machinery of show business, almost by accident. But even before fame arrived, Anissa's home life was not peaceful. Her parents' marriage collapsed, and their separation led to a difficult custody battle. For a child so young, that kind of conflict could leave deep marks. While the adults around her fought over where she belonged, Anissa was already being pushed towards a world where she would be expected to smile on command. Her mother, Mary, saw something special in her daughter. She enrolled Anissa in dance classes when she was still very small, hoping to develop the talent that seemed to come naturally. Neighbors also noticed Anissa's camera-friendly face and suggested that Mary take her to auditions. It did not take long for Hollywood to respond. By the age of 6, Anissa was appearing in television commercials. She was small, expressive, and easy to like. Casting people saw exactly what audiences would later see: a child who looked innocent without trying. Soon she was doing more commercials, and each one brought her closer to the role that would change her life forever. In 1966, when Anissa was 8 years old, she was cast as Buffy Davis in the CBS sitcom Family Affair. The show told the story of 3 orphan children sent to live with their wealthy bachelor uncle in New York. It was gentle, emotional, and made for families who wanted comfort from their television screens. Anissa was chosen to play the youngest child, Buffy, even though she was older than the character, because her small size and childlike face made her believable. Almost overnight, Anissa Jones became one of the most recognizable little girls on American television. Viewers did not just watch Buffy, they adored her. But the same role that made Anissa famous would also become the image she could never escape. Family Affair arrived at the perfect time. Television was becoming a powerful part of American family life, and audiences wanted characters they could welcome into their homes week after week. Buffy Davis gave them exactly that. With her soft voice, innocent expression, and blonde hair tied into pigtails, Anissa Jones became the emotional heart of the show. The character was rarely seen without her doll, Mrs. Beasley. On screen, the doll became almost as recognizable as Buffy herself. For young viewers, Buffy and Mrs. Beasley felt inseparable, and soon that popularity moved beyond television. A real Mrs. Beasley doll was released, and it became one of the most successful toys in America at the time. Children wanted the doll because Buffy had it. They wanted a piece of the little girl they watched every week. The show's success turned Anissa into far more than a child actress. She became a brand. There were Buffy coloring books, lunch boxes, children's clothing, and even a cookbook with her image on the cover. For adults, she was adorable. For children, she was familiar. For CBS, she was valuable. But behind the cheerful world of Family Affair, the work was exhausting. The show became a hit quickly, and once the ratings climbed, the pressure on the cast increased. Anissa was still only a child, yet she was expected to work like a professional adult. The production schedule was demanding, sometimes stretching across long weeks with very little normal childhood in between. While other children had school, playtime, and privacy, Anissa had scripts, cameras, rehearsals, interviews, and publicity. Still, those who worked with her often remembered her warmly. Cast and crew members described her as intelligent, talented, and unusually kind for someone so young. She had a natural ability in front of the camera, but she was also thoughtful away from it. One of the most touching things about Anissa was her love for her younger brother, Paul. When people gave her gifts, she often wanted Paul to receive something too. If he could not have one, she sometimes gave her own gift away rather than enjoy it alone. That kindness made her even more loved by those around her. Guest stars were said to feel comfortable with her because she welcomed people easily. She was not just performing sweetness on television. In many ways, she really was a gentle child. At the height of her fame, Hollywood also gave her small chances outside the sitcom. In 1969, she appeared in The Trouble with Girls alongside Elvis Presley. She also appeared on popular talk shows, including programs hosted by Merv Griffin and Dick Cavett. In 1967, she even presented at the Emmy Awards, an extraordinary moment for someone so young. But fame was slowly tightening around her. America loved Buffy, but Anissa Jones was beginning to realize that the world did not know how to love her as anyone else. As Family Affair became more successful, Anissa Jones became more trapped inside the very image that had made her famous. To the public, she was still Buffy, the tiny, innocent girl with pigtails and Mrs. Beasley in her arms. But in real life, Anissa was growing older. She was no longer the little child America had first met. And with every year that passed, the role began to feel smaller around her. For a young actress, steady work on a hit television show should have been a dream, but for Anissa, it came with a painful cost. Her childhood was being spent under studio lights. The show's schedule was demanding, and the more popular Family Affair became, the more she was expected to keep giving the same sweet performance. Audiences wanted Buffy to stay innocent forever. Anissa wanted the chance to become herself. By the later seasons, people close to the production began to notice a change. The bright energy she had shown in the beginning seemed harder for her to maintain. She had grown tired of the character and reportedly felt embarrassed by how babyish Buffy seemed. The pigtails, the doll, the childish lines, all of it began to feel like a cage. She wanted to be seen as a real actress, not just as a cute little girl from television. At the same time, the show's popularity began to weaken. After several successful seasons, Family Affair was no longer pulling in the same excitement it once had. In 1971, after 5 seasons, CBS cancelled the series. Anissa was only 12 years old. For many young actors, losing a long-running role would have been frightening. But Anissa was reportedly relieved. She believed cancellation might finally free her from Buffy and allow her to start a new chapter. She wanted different roles, serious roles, the kind that could prove she was more than a child star. But Hollywood had already made up its mind about her. The problem was simple and cruel. Everyone still saw Buffy. Anissa auditioned for the role of Regan McNeil in The Exorcist, the terrifying story of a young girl possessed by a demon. It could have been the perfect break from her innocent image. But director William Friedkin could not picture the beloved little girl from Family Affair in such a disturbing role, and the part went to Linda Blair. Later, Anissa also tried for the role of Iris in Taxi Driver, Martin Scorsese's dark drama about a troubled young girl caught in a dangerous adult world. Again, it was exactly the kind of part that could have changed how people saw her. But once more, the role went to another young actress, Jodie Foster. Each rejection pushed Anissa further from the future she wanted. Hollywood had adored her as a child, but as she grew into a teenager, it seemed to have no idea what to do with her. After Family Affair ended, Anissa Jones entered the most dangerous period of her life. She was no longer the little girl America watched every week, but she was not being accepted as a grown actress either. Hollywood had taken her childhood, turned her into an image, and then seemed to leave her behind when that image no longer fit. Without steady work, Anissa began searching for freedom in places that only brought more trouble. She tried to live like an ordinary teenager, but ordinary life was difficult for someone who had grown up famous. She reportedly took normal jobs, but could not keep them for long. The discipline of a television set had once shaped almost every hour of her life. Now, suddenly, there was too much freedom and too little direction. As her teenage years progressed, her behavior became more troubling. She began spending more time with friends her mother did not approve of. There were reports of substance use, shoplifting, and erratic mood swings. To the outside world, it may have looked like rebellion, but beneath it was a young woman who had been famous too early, typecast too strongly, and left without a safe path into adulthood. Her family situation also grew more painful. After years of custody conflict, Anissa and her brother Paul had gone to live with their father. But on March 7, 1974, just 4 days before Anissa's 16th birthday, he died from cardiovascular disease. The loss was devastating. Her father's death removed one of the few stable figures in her life, at a time when she was already drifting. Her mother, Mary, was still legally connected to her care, but their relationship was strained. Mary worried deeply about the people around Anissa and believed they were leading her into danger. Anissa, however, wanted independence and often disappeared for days at a time. Her mother became so alarmed that she reportedly filed missing person reports when she could not find her daughter. What should have been a normal mother-daughter conflict had become something much more frightening. Then, in March 1976, Anissa turned 18. Legally, she was now an adult, and she gained access to the money she had earned during family affair. The amount was enormous for someone her age, just under $200,000. For a young woman who was already surrounded by instability, the sudden money was not protection. It became another danger. Within only a few months, much of it was gone. Anissa spent heavily, and her partying reportedly became worse. The girl who had once been protected by studio schedules and childhood contracts was now moving through a world where almost no one seemed able to stop her. On August 27, 1976, Anissa traveled with her boyfriend and friends to Oceanside, California. The group ended up at the home of the father of one of her 14-year-old friends. It was supposed to be another party by the beach. Instead, it became the final night of her life. As the sun rose over Oceanside, California, on August 28, 1976, the party was over. What had begun as another carefree night among friends had turned into a tragedy that would shock millions of Americans who still remembered Anissa Jones as the sweet little girl from Family Affair. That morning, Anissa was found dead inside the house where the group had spent the night. She was only 18 years old. The news spread quickly. For many people, it seemed impossible to reconcile the image of Buffy Davis with the reality of a fatal overdose. Yet investigators soon discovered that the former child star's final hours had been marked by extreme substance use. According to reports from the time, the amount found in her system was so severe that even experienced officials were stunned. One investigator reportedly described it as among the most serious overdose cases he had encountered, involving someone so young. For her family, the loss was devastating. Anissa had always loved the ocean, and after a private service, she was cremated. Her ashes were later scattered over the Pacific, allowing her final resting place to be the coastline she had always enjoyed. But the investigation into her death was far from over. Among the items recovered from the scene was an envelope bearing the business address of a physician named Dr. Don Carlos Moschos. Inside was information related to one of the drugs later identified in Anissa's toxicology report. The discovery immediately drew attention to a doctor who was already facing scrutiny from authorities. As reporters began digging into Moschos's background, disturbing allegations emerged. People familiar with his practice described long lines of young clients waiting outside his office. Investigators claimed that prescriptions were being handed out with alarming ease. According to local reports, patients allegedly needed little more than identification and a small fee before receiving access to powerful medications. The allegations painted a troubling picture. At a time when Anissa was struggling with fame, loss, and addiction, obtaining dangerous prescription drugs may have been far easier than it should have been. Just 6 days after her death, authorities arrested Moschos at his office in Torrance, California. He faced charges connected to his prescribing practices, including allegations involving medications linked to Anissa's case. Yet despite the public outrage surrounding the investigation, there would never be a full courtroom reckoning. Moschos himself was seriously ill. He suffered from multiple health problems, including diabetes, hepatitis, and high blood pressure. In December 1976, only a few months after Anissa's death, He was admitted to a hospital. 3 weeks later, he died before the legal proceedings could fully play out. Anissa's family continued their fight through the courts, filing a lawsuit against the doctor's estate. Years later, a jury found Moshos partially responsible for the circumstances surrounding her death, resulting in a financial award to the family. But no amount of money could undo what had happened. Tragically, the Jones family would suffer another heartbreaking loss. In 1984, Anissa's beloved younger brother, Paul, also died from a substance-related overdose. He was only 24 years old. For their mother, it was an unimaginable second tragedy. The sadness surrounding family affair did not end there. Anissa's co-star Sebastian Cabot died in 1977, and years later, Brian Keith took his own life. Together, the losses cast a shadow over a show once remembered for its warmth and optimism. Today, Anissa Jones remains one of Hollywood's most heartbreaking cautionary tales. She achieved a level of fame that most actors never experience. Yet she barely lived long enough to discover who she might have become beyond the role that made her famous. To millions of viewers, she will always be Buffy Davis, the smiling little girl with pigtails and a doll in her arms. But behind that image was a young woman struggling to escape the expectations of childhood fame. Her story is a reminder that success, especially at a young age, can come with a cost that the audience never sees.